Hi everyone, welcome to my sewing and DIY channel. In this video today, I'm going to show you how to sew a simple sailor bow. And then we're going to take that sailor bow and turn it into different accessory pieces. We're going to make a hair clip, we're going to make a hair barrette, we're going to make an adjustable bow tie, and we're also going to make a pin brooch, which is this one that I'm wearing right here. I have a PDF sewing pattern for making the sailor bow in 3 different sizes, so there's a perfect size for every DIY project that you have in mind. So if you want the math to be done for you already, go to the description box and click on the link to get the sewing pattern. Now let's get started with the sewing tutorial. Now if you're using my sewing pattern, you need to start off by assembling the sewing pattern. Cut the pattern pieces out along the solid lines and join them together using the gray flowers as a guide. To make one sailor bow, cut 2 pieces of fabric with the pattern piece for the main bow and 1 piece of fabric with the pattern piece for the bow wrap. Remember to mark the notches on the pattern piece for the main bow. Place the main bow pieces right sides together and sew all along the edge with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. To make sewing the corners a little easier later, mark the stitch line in the corners of the main bow so you know exactly where to pivot your work when sewing. Leave an opening between the notches to turn the bow right sides out. For the acute corner of the bow piece to turn out nice and sharp later, make sure you pivot your work when sewing and make a diagonal stitch when sewing the corner. Next, turn the bow right sides out. For the corners to turn out nice and smooth, we will need to trim the seam allowance in the corner. Before trimming, dab some fray check on the stitches in the corner to secure them. When that's done, trim the seam allowance close to the stitches. Make sure you don't cut the stitches by mistake. You will need a tool like a blunt tapestry needle or tweezers to turn the acute corner out nicely. Be patient and do this slowly. In other words, don't poke too hard. Press the bow neatly so the corners look nice and sharp, and at this stage, the seam allowance along the opening between the notches should be turned to the inside. Sew the opening closed by hand sewing with a ladder stitch for a clean finish, or sewing close to the edge with your sewing machine. Next, we're gonna start working on the bow wrap. Fold the bow wrap in half lengthwise, right sides together, then stitch the long edge with the 3/8 inch seam allowance. Trim the seam allowance in half, then turn the bow wrap right sides out and press it so the seam is in the center. The side with the seam will be the wrong side of the bow wrap. Now we're going to start folding the bow. Start by marking out the midpoint of the bow, then fold the bow with the guide provided in the instruction manual. In this video, I am making the bow in size medium and folding the bow in this manner. Secure the folded bow with pins and mark out the midline of the bow with the fabric marker. Baste the bow along the midline here, then gather the basting stitches to create the shape of your sailor bow. Over here, you might also want to adjust the gathers as you go so your sailor bow will look just the way you want it to. And when you're happy with the way it looks, stitch the gathers in place by hand. Don't cut the thread at this point because we're going to continue to hand sew the bow wrap in place later. Now with the right side of the sailor bow facing you, place the bow wrap over and around the gathered midline. Make sure the right side of the bow wrap is facing you as well. Flip the bow to the back, then sew the bow wrap in place. Do this by folding one end of the bow wrap and then overlapping that end over the other end. When you've determined the length of bow wrap that you need, you can cut the excess off, then sew the bow wrap in place. I like to do this by hand sewing with a slip stitch. And there you have it, you just made a super cute sailor bow. And now I'm going to show you how to turn this sailor bow into different accessory pieces that you can mix and match for any occasion. To turn the sailor bow into a hair clip, all you have to do is get one of these hair clips that's also called an alligator clip. Hold the alligator clip open, then push the top of the clip through the bow wrap in the back of the bow. Then, using a hot glue gun, secure the rest of the bow to the alligator clip. That's it! It is that simple. To make a sailor bow hair barrette, you need to get one of these metal hair barrettes. Open the hair barrette and remove this pin in the middle. We need to start working with the metal hair barrette before you start wrapping your bow wrap around the bow. Place the front of the hair barrette on the back of the sailor bow, then wrap the bow wrap around it. Fold one end of the bow wrap, overlap it with the other end, and sew it in place just like I showed you before. When you're done, replace the pin in the hair barrette and secure the bow to the ends of the hair barrette. Making a brooch with the sailor bow is super easy. You will need one of these pin backs that has these little holes. You can simply glue the pin back on the back of the bow, but personally, I find sewing a lot more secure. You will have to finish sewing the bow wrap first before sewing the pin back on. Now here's how you make an adjustable bow tie with the sailor bow that you've just made. This is a super kitschy way of wearing the sailor bow, but I just love it and I know some of you will like it too. To make the adjustable strap for the bow tie, you need a slide, a G-hook, and a piece of rectangular fabric with the following measurements. Fold and press the fabric in quarters lengthwise to make a double fold strap. Next, sew the strap in place by edge stitching along the opening of the double fold strap. Fold about 3/4 inches of fabric over one end of the strap and stitch it in place. This creates a loop that the G-hook is going to hook onto at the end. You can simply sew the loop in place with a straight stitch, or if you are able to, sew tiny zigzag stitches over the raw end as well. Next, we're going to work on the other end of the adjustable strap. Insert the strap through both loops of the slider and the G-hook. Pull the strap from the top of the slider to create some space. Then insert the raw end of the strap through both loops of the slider again, but this time going from the underside of the slider. fold the strap back on itself with the 1-inch overlap so there's room for sewing, and stitch it in place just like before with the straight stitch and tiny zigzag stitches over the raw end if possible. Once you're done with making the adjustable strap, loop it through the bow wrap on the back of the bow. You can do this with the help of a safety pin attached to the end without the G-hook. So I hope you found this video tutorial helpful. If you have, please take a second to give it a thumbs up. It really goes a long way. The sailor style top that I'm wearing right here is actually my 4th design for Nomi Patterns, the ME2078. This top is super easy to make. If you have the surgeon, you can probably finish it in like 2 hours maximum. I'll add a link to the sewing tutorial at the end of this video. Don't forget to subscribe for more sewing and DIY, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!